Have you ever noticed what happens to your mind when your waking life falls apart? When you are going through a deep depression, an existential crisis, or a period of overwhelming emotional numbness, something strange happens the moment you close your eyes. Your dreams shift. They become vivid, heavy, terrifying, or strangely quiet. Sometimes you dream of suffocating under dark waters. Sometimes you find yourself wandering through ruined houses, running from unseen figures, or standing in desolate, endless landscapes where no sound can be heard. It is easy to believe that these dark dreams are simply symptoms of a broken mind. We tend to view depression as a dark cloud that ruins everything, including our sleep. But what if those disturbing dreams are not random side effects of your distress? What if they are actually precise, urgent messages coming from the deepest layer of your psyche? The legendary Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung spent decades studying the relationship between human suffering and the unconscious mind. He proposed a radical idea that completely transforms how we look at emotional breakdown. Jung suggested that the unconscious mind is not a trash bin of unwanted thoughts, but a self-regulating system. Much like your physical body tries to heal a physical wound, your psyche tries to balance itself when your conscious life goes wrong. And when you are in a crisis or depression, your dreams change dramatically because your inner world is making a desperate attempt to save you. To understand why your dreams transform during a personal crisis, you first need to understand how Carl Jung viewed the human mind. In modern society, we often place all our value on the ego. The ego is your conscious self. It is the part of you that goes to work, manages daily responsibilities, sets goals, and tries to maintain a public image. Jung called this public mask the persona. For a long time, you might manage to keep everything together. You put on a brave face, you ignore your sadness, you push through exhaustion, and you pretend that everything is fine. But the conscious mind is only a small island floating on a vast, deep ocean. That ocean is the unconscious mind. The unconscious holds everything that your conscious ego ignores, suppresses, or forgets. It contains your unlived desires, your hidden pain, your neglected creative energy, and your deepest instinctual wisdom. When you experience a depression or a severe life crisis, what is really happening on a psychological level? Jung believed that depression often occurs when the energy of the ego is drained. Psychologically, this is a drop in the level of consciousness. The facade you built, the beliefs you held onto, or the lifestyle you forced yourself to maintain suddenly loses its meaning. The ego runs out of steam. It can no longer maintain the illusion that everything is under control. And when the conscious mind becomes helpless or rigid, the power balance shifts. The unconscious mind surges forward. This is precisely why your dreams change so radically during a crisis. During normal times, when your ego feels strong and secure, your dreams might seem mundane or forgotten. But when you hit rock bottom, the filter between your conscious mind and your unconscious mind weakens. The unconscious speaks up, and it speaks in the language of vivid, intense symbols. Jung explained that dreams serve a primary function known as compensation. Compensation means that the unconscious presents images and scenarios that directly balance out the false or narrow attitudes of your waking life. If you spend your days pretending to be emotionally strong while suppressing deep grief, your dreams will force you to feel overwhelming sorrow. If you live a life of extreme perfectionism and control, your dreams will drop you into chaos, filth, or collapse. The dream is not trying to torture you. It is trying to restore balance to a psyche that has tilted too far in one direction. Consider the common dream motifs that people experience during periods of deep depression or emotional crisis. One of the most frequent patterns is the dream of a collapsing structure. You might dream that you are standing inside your childhood home or a grand palace, and suddenly the walls begin to crack. The floor gives way beneath your feet, roof tiles fall, and the entire building crumbles into dust around you. To the conscious mind, waking up from such a dream leaves a feeling of terror and dread. But symbolically, a house in Jungian psychology often represents the structure of your personality. It represents the ego, the psychological home you built to protect yourself. When you dream that your house is falling apart, your unconscious mind is communicating a vital truth. It is telling you that the structure you built for your life is no longer sustainable. The old way of living, the old identity, the old beliefs, they are collapsing because they can no longer house who you truly are. The collapse feels like a disaster, but from the perspective of psychological development, it is a necessary clearing of space. Another deeply profound motif during depression is the image of water. People in crisis frequently dream of tidal waves, murky floods, drowning in deep oceans, or being pulled into dark, stagnant pools. Water is one of the most ancient archetypal symbols of the unconscious mind. Clear, flowing water represents life, renewal, and emotion. But heavy, murky, or overflowing water represents the unconscious threatening to swallow the conscious ego whole. When you feel emotionally overwhelmed or depressed in waking life, you are essentially experiencing a state where the unconscious is flooding your conscious mind. Dreaming of drowning or being underwater is a direct symbolic reflection of this state. The dream is showing you that you are out of your depth. You cannot control the waters by simply trying to swim harder with your old methods. You are being asked to stop fighting the water in the same old way and instead learn how to yield, surrender, and discover what lies at the bottom of that ocean. Then there is the dark, terrifying figure that pursues you through your dreams. The shadow. During times of crisis, shadow dreams become remarkably intense. You might be chased down dark alleys by a sinister stranger, an animal, or a terrifying monster. You run until your legs feel like lead, waking up drenched in sweat just before the threat reaches you. In Jungian psychology, the shadow consists of all the parts of yourself that you have rejected, hidden, or deemed unacceptable. It includes your anger, your grief, your wild instincts, but also your lost vitality and unlived potential. When you are in a crisis, it is often because you have spent years pushing the shadow away. You tried to be nice, compliant, rational, or strong, leaving a massive part of your true self locked in the dark basement of your mind. The figure chasing you in your dream is not an evil force coming from the outside world. It is a part of yourself that has been abandoned for too long. The more you run from it in your waking life, the more aggressive and monster-like it appears in your dreams. It chases you because it demands to be acknowledged. It is knocking on the door of your consciousness, forcing you to turn around and face what you have tried so hard to ignore. There is another type of dream that occurs during severe depression, and in many ways, it feels the most haunting of all. It is the dream of total emptiness. You find yourself in a frozen wasteland, a gray desert, or a silent room where nothing moves and no one speaks. There are no monsters, no floods, no collapsing buildings, just absolute terrifying stillness. Jung recognized that this state corresponds to what ancient traditions called the dark night of the soul, or what he referred to as the descent into the underworld. In psychological terms, this is a state where the psyche has withdrawn all its energy from the outer world. The ego feels completely empty because the energy, or libido, has retreated deep into the unconscious matrix. When you experience these barren, empty dreams, it feels as though life has lost all color and meaning. But Jung observed that this deep withdrawal is often a necessary phase of psychological transformation. When a tree loses all its leaves in winter, it looks dead. To an outside observer, nothing is happening. But beneath the frozen ground, deep within the roots, the tree is conserving its life force, preparing for a future spring that the conscious eye cannot yet see. The empty dream is reflecting this deep winter of the psyche. It is telling you that the outer world cannot offer you answers right now. The energy has gone inward, and you are being forced to sit in the dark until something new can be born. It is worth looking at Carl Jung's own life to see how these principles played out in reality. Around the year 1913, Jung experienced his own catastrophic psychological crisis. He parted ways with Sigmund Freud, lost his standing in the academic world, and felt his internal life coming apart at the seams. He was plagued by terrifying visions and intense apocalyptic dreams. He saw entire continents flooded with blood and felt as though he was losing his mind. Instead of running away from these dark dreams and visions or suppressing them with endless work, Jung made a radical decision. He decided to turn toward his inner darkness. Every evening, after finishing his clinical work, he sat at his desk and voluntarily entered the terrifying landscapes of his unconscious. He wrote down his dreams in extreme detail. He painted the strange, haunting figures that appeared to him. He carried on imaginary conversations with the archetypal entities that inhabited his night world. This intense period of inner confrontation lasted for several years, and it culminated in what is now famously known as the Red Book. Jung later wrote that everything he accomplished in his entire life, all his theories on archetypes, the shadow, the collective unconscious, and psychological integration, grew out of the seeds that were planted during that dark, terrifying period of crisis. He realized that his breakdown was not the end of his life, but the painful, chaotic beginning of his true self-realization. He called this process of inner integration individuation. Now, it is crucial to state clearly that Jungian theory is a psychological and philosophical framework for understanding meaning and inner experience. It is not a substitute for clinical medical care or professional mental health treatment. If you are struggling with clinical depression or severe distress, seeking professional support is a vital and courageous step. What Jung offers us is not a cure that eliminates pain instantly, but a profound lens through which we can understand our internal symbolic world. When you are going through a crisis, how can you begin to work with your dreams instead of being terrified by them? How do you move from feeling tormented by your unconscious to learning from its ancient language? The first step is to change your fundamental attitude toward your dark dreams. Most people wake up from a nightmare or a depressing dream and immediately try to push it out of their minds. They tell themselves, "It was just a bad dream," or "my brain is broken." This reaction is understandable, but it closes the door to self-understanding. Instead of treating the dream as an enemy, try to approach it with quiet curiosity. When you wake up after a strange or heavy dream, do not jump out of bed immediately. Stay still for a few moments. Let the images, feelings, and atmosphere of the dream linger in your awareness. Do not try to analyze it right away with cold logic. Simply feel the emotional resonance of the dream in your body. The second step is to write the dream down as accurately as possible. Keep a notebook and a pen right next to your bed. Write down everything you can remember, even if it is just a single image, a color, or a lingering mood. Do not worry about grammar or coherent storytelling. Just record the raw material. When you write down the dream, pay special attention to how you felt inside the dream. Were you angry, ashamed, terrified, or strangely peaceful? In Jungian dream analysis, the emotion felt in the dream is often the most honest clue. It reveals the exact feeling that your waking ego is suppressing during the daytime. The third step is to engage in symbolic amplification rather than looking up generic interpretations in a dream dictionary. Dream dictionaries are largely useless because symbols are deeply personal and contextual. A dog in a dream might mean loyalty to one person, but terror to someone who was bitten as a child. Look at the key elements of your dream and ask yourself, what does this specific image mean to me? If you dreamed of a ruined, decaying house, ask yourself, what part of my life currently feels like it is crumbling? Is it my career, my relationship, my need to please everyone? Where in my life am I living in an old structure that no longer protects me? If you were chased by a terrifying shadow figure, ask yourself, what quality does this pursuer possess that I refuse to allow in myself? Is the pursuer aggressive? Perhaps you have been suppressing your healthy, boundary-setting and assertive anger. Is the pursuer wild and chaotic? Perhaps you have lived a life that is too rigid, controlled, and suppressed. You can even practice a technique that Jung developed, known as active imagination. When you are awake and in a quiet space, bring the image of a dream figure back into your mind. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and visualize that figure standing before you. In your mind, ask that figure a simple question. What do you want from me? Why are you chasing me? What message are you trying to bring? Then, drop your logical expectations and listen quietly to whatever thoughts, feelings, or words surface from your unconscious. You might be surprised by the wisdom that emerges when you stop running from your internal shadows and finally offer them a seat at the table. Living through a period of crisis or depression is one of the hardest human experiences. It can feel as though the light has gone out and you are trapped in an endless, meaningless night. But Carl Jung's insights offer us a profound ray of hope. Your dark dreams are showing you that your mind has not given up on you. Even when your conscious ego feels utterly defeated, your unconscious is still hard at work. It is sending you distress flares, diagnostic maps, and symbolic medicine. It is trying to break down the false self you built so that a more authentic, whole human being can finally emerge from the ruins. The seed does not grow into a tree by remaining comfortable in the sunlight. It must first be buried in the dark, silent earth. Its outer shell must crack open, and it must push through the cold dirt before it can reach toward the sky. Your crisis and the disturbing dreams that accompany it may very well be the cracking of your outer shell. The next time you wake up from a heavy, disturbing dream in the middle of a personal storm, do not despair. Pause, take a deep breath, and listen closely to what your soul is trying to tell you in the dark.